Welcome to Support Life, a program focusing on current social issues from a life-affirming perspective. I'm Gavin Baulch and my guest is Marcus Lestrange, a freelance journalist. Welcome, Marcus.
Good to be back.
And you're not wearing a yellow tie today?
No, I thought I'd follow the politicians, their trend to take the tie off.
Oh, right, okay. So we're not taking the mickey out of anyone today?
No.
Okay. All right,
I'd love to, but...
Although we really would like our audience to start connecting some dots, wouldn't we?
Correct, and make meaning of life.
Media-wise and make some decisions on their own.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, you've been around Melbourne and Victoria for a while, haven't you?
All my life, 60 plus years. So I've had a few years overseas, teaching English in Asia and in London, but most of the time in Melbourne.
Okay, and as a freelance journalist, do you get acceptance from the different papers?
No, it's very hard because they're putting off their own journalists, cost cutting, and you've got to be part of the in crowd, press gallery.
Yes. If
you're not in that press gallery in crowd, you're really very hard.
Okay, all right, let's say we want to break through with a little bit of tidbit columns here and there, or a paraphrase or a phrase. How does that come about when little nuggets of truth break through a newspaper's ideology?
You have to read a lot. I try and read 4 newspapers a day, and I try also The Economist in London, watch internet email letters. But every so often there might be just a reference to a fact that just is buried, but you think, they're getting onto something that they're not really revealing in the preceding paragraphs. I remember reading about Janet Allen, who's the chair of the Federal Reserve in the United States. She, rambled on about what needs to be done in America. Then I just saw a paragraph where she had said she has great doubts about the monthly unemployment figures and would start looking for a new measure of unemployment. And it doesn't sound much, but I thought, here's a top leader on the ball. I mean, I don't know whether she's still doing it, but every so often something like that happens.
Sort of a Freudian slip, as they would say.
Or could be a deliberate slip, you're a bit harsh there, maybe, but I'll leave it up to people to decide. But sometimes I do let the cat out of the bag.
All right, so our watching audience, what we're suggesting is read a lot, think a bit more, and connect some dots that are out there. Because Mr. and Mrs. Average, or Ms. Average, you're wise because of life's experience, right? And something that rings true to your life experience. In a barrage of political correctness and other things, you go, aha.
Yes. I think you get it that way by becoming active in politics and factions within politics, because that's the reality. You learn really how policy is really made and not the bump you see on election or in the election period. You see all the rat cunning, knifings and sheer skullduggery. And that way you can inch forward to find out reality, not the nonsense on TV every night.
All right, so let's look at, because there will be a lot of young adults watching, about true unemployment figures. We think it's what at the moment, and what could it be?
Well, the official monthly figures are around 6%. Roy Morgan, a research has it 12%. I have it at 20%, simply because, or one vacancy for every 20 unemployed, 2 million, simply because the ABS do another survey on unemployment, an annual one, called Persons Not in the Labour Force. So it's far more extensive and deep than the monthly figures, which I think are an exercise in numerology.
All right, now that's an interesting word. The female head of World Bank, she gave a little talk saying how she rests and applies numerology to some figures. Has that word popped up in the newspaper recently, numerology?
Not that much. Only sarcastic people in letters to the editor might say, well, look, you're doing numerology, or you're reading the tea leaves every morning. Mm-hmm. But I really think a lot of policy makers who are on megabucks salary, they must do it too, because they often simply don't know what's happening.
Okay. All right. Now, if unemployment's higher than what it is, both parties, major parties, are playing the same game. In other words, they're not fudging figures, but they're playing loose. What's going on?
Well, they're horrified of the masses or the plebs finding out the real figures, because it will show that since 1975, when a big change in the economy occurred, all their policies in this area, and billions of dollars on labour market programs, have been much ado about nothing.
Oh, so Shakespeare comes into the equation again.
He'll always will come into it for the next 1,000 years.
Mm-hmm. So he was a good student of human nature, and you're tending to err that way too.
Well, when you work I worked in the old Commonwealth Employment Service, but was forced out for being a whistleblower. And I've taught in the western suburbs, and I've travelled, so you learn a few lessons of life.
Yes, okay.
And I've been, of course, being involved in politics, yes, and a very brave community group like Save Albert Park. You learn just how society really works.
All right, well, Albert Park, it's something, the racing that takes place there once a year is well known, and there's a bit of sabre rattling from both sides. What's the real story, just briefly?
Well, the race loses around $100 million a year, and all the nonsense about the attendance figures and TV audience, they're just made up, like the tea leaves in a teacup. See, at the race, they don't have turnstiles, so they've got no way of finding out how many people go. And they don't have turnstiles because, as they admitted, if people knew the real figures, the race would be stopped immediately. It'd be sent back to Bernie Ecclestone land in England.
Well, on that note of stopping, we'll need to take a break. You're watching Support Life, and we'll be back after the break. Welcome back to Support Life. I'm Gavin Baulch, and my guest is Marcus Lestrange, a freelance journalist. Marcus, we were kind of daring to say that perhaps our unemployment figures were a little bit skewed, fudged maybe. Is part of the trick, the game with mirrors, is to create courses and keep TAFE and universities full? What's happening here for young people?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Students are staying on longer and doing VCE when they don't really need to, particularly if you want to do an apprenticeship. And secondly, there's a record amount of students in universities, and that lowers the unemployment figure. Then there's a lot of the Department of Employment and Job Services Australia run a lot of training courses, which if you're on the dole and on the course, you're not counted as being unemployed. So of the 800,000 who are claimed to be unemployed by the monthly figures, I think about 400,000 of those are exempted from looking for work because of doing some training. And once you're exempted from looking for work, you're not counted as being unemployed.
Okay. Now, how does this affect the morale of those doing course after course? What's going on? What's preventing them from being employed?
Well, a severe shortage of jobs. No other reason. And the fact that we haven't done what we've done in the past, reduce the working week, so that we all have some work to do rather than some doing all the work. So I'm very pessimistic and optimistic. We could have a glorious age of 3 or 4 day work, and then the rest is leisure, culture, travel, all paid for by the current cost of unemployment, which is massive.
Okay. So again, we have to let go to gain something here.
Yes. But the politicians don't want to do that because if they reveal the real unemployment figures, as I think I said earlier, it'll show what they've been doing, not telling the truth, for the last 35 years, will become obvious.
So we're talking about both sides of the major...
Oh, yes.
Okay.
I can remember John Howard telling me about, what are we now, 33 years ago. He said, Marcus, I know the real unemployment figure is 2 million or 20%, but I can't afford to be honest. If I was honest, people would spend less or become depressed, spend less, and we'd have even more unemployment. And more recently, Julia Gillard in 2011 said her job was to get 2 million people back into employment. So, and I know other politicians, that Amanda Vanstone, when she was Minister for Employment, she had her department conduct a survey of the real figures and it came up with 22%. Penny Wong wrote to me, and it's in writing, that she thought the real figure was around 2 million plus, plus those who are working less hours than what they want to work or underemployed. She was given a chance in the Senate to deny it, but she didn't take it.
All right. So again, we have, is it an underclass being developed?
Oh, no question. Well, I don't know what you think of the recent program Struggle Town, but I think that clearly shows an underclass. And I just went to Sydney recently for a conference, and I'd noticed a lot of people, more people than usual, sleeping in doorways, park benches, and here in Melbourne too. So, oh yeah, definitely an underclass.
Okay, I travelled a little bit in America, which I have done over the last 10 years, and very common to see the old, what we would call the Safeway trolley, which was a person's possessions and where they slept at night with a plastic bag around them to keep them from the rain and the wind.
Yep. Oh, poor buggers. Well, I remember going to LA once, and one side of the street was all nice buildings, office towers, and just simply a small street on the other side. People warming themselves by fire, drinking cheap grog, looked derelict, and it was just, horrible.
So is that coming to spare parking space near us in Australia more and more?
Oh, I think it's here. Well, it's here. 100,000 people sleep homeless every night. I try and help out at Sacred Heart Mission, and they provide 500 to 600 meals a day. And that's not just for locals, it's people all across town. Father Bob Maguire has got his van nearby every so often, soup van. So, it's here, yeah.
All right. Now, let's throw some solutions out there. What might they look like?
Well, people have got to join, become active and become aware, join a political party of their choice, and get involved in the internal machinations of the party, which I know are grubby and greasy and horrible, but that's really the only way you'll learn. And get involved, and in the once great Australian Labor Party, there's a big faction there called Open Labor, which is trying to bring democracy inside the Labor Party rather than brand stacking and cronyism.
Yes.
It's hard, but I can't see any other choice.
Okay. There's also another faction there called Local.
Local Labor, yes. They're the same, much the same good work. That's Race Matthews.
Yes.
They're doing the same work too, and I hope the two groups unite.
Okay. Well, uniting is a good word, so we'll come back in a moment and unite.
Good.
You're watching Support Life, and we'll be back after the break. Welcome back to Support Life. I'm Gavin Baulch and my guest is Marcus Lestrange, a freelance journalist. Marcus, we concluded about coming back with some unity here, and I'd like to just move down the track. Is there, do we think, some kind of unwritten law between journalists and politicians by which our journalists are pretty soft?
Yes, I think there is, but it's mainly the senior journalists. They're promised by the politicians that they'll get the drop or juicy leaks, but in return for not rocking the boat. Mm-hmm. And so they set the agenda for the junior journalists. And there's no question. See, I can remember 10 years ago, Herald Sun journalist Terry McCrann, at The Age, Tim Colbatch, used to write a lot on dodgy unemployment figures. But over the last 10 years, very, very little. Mm-hmm. And they're the two key leaders in this particular area. Mm. So in return for juicy leaks, yes. That's...
Marcus, there are some, though, who are good straight shooters and to the point. Robert Gottliebsen challenged the unemployment figures. What's happening there?
Well, good. He went to a Roy Morgan seminar, State of the Nation, last week, and I was there. And I got up and asked the question, why are journalists, or have they been nobbled on this point? And Robert really didn't answer the question, but 4 hours later, he wrote in the Business Spectator that the figures are not correct and they do great harm because major policy decisions are made on dodgy figures. It's like sending a rocket to the moon. If you only work out you need half the fuel, well, an accident. Yes. So, major problems. Yes. But, we need to, I hope others come out of the woodwork, journalists, and I'm doing my best to encourage that, but I'm not going to hold my breath. Yeah.
Now, I saw an article that you'd put together. Would you just like to show me that article? I found it quite interesting.
Yes. This is my paper on the dodgy unemployment figures. I've got about 19 reasons why they're dodgy, the monthly figures, and I've got about 17 reasons or problems that they cause. And I've also got a one-page document what there needs to be done to overcome the problem, which is mainly a shorter working week, abolition of Job Services Australia, 457 visas, and so on.
Okay. Well, there's some food for thought for our audience to look at some of these dots, go online, do their own research, and think freely as a freelance journalist.
Don't be a sheep.
Exactly. Or a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Yeah. Oh, good.
All right. Tell me some of the good things. If we have good statistics, the benefit for everyone is and takes the form of?
Well, the benefit for everybody is you don't waste money on bread and circus nonsense like work for the dole or the activity test or Job Services Australia, which cost billions. All these things are smoke and mirrors nonsense to pretend, well, if you do this course or do that, you'll get a job. But it's cow dung. Yeah. So if we have full employment, people are happy, less suicides, less ill health, contentment, productivity goes up. I can remember working on kibbutzes in Israel in the 1970s, and everybody worked hard, but for a short period. We really worked hard. Once the job was finished, boom, leisure. Yes. But that's the type of life I want to see.
Yes. I spent a little bit of time over in Israel on kibbutz life there, and just was impressed. You know, they had 3 lots of activity. You know, primary, tertiary, secondary, all going on. Yeah, and it was encouraging.
Yep. Yeah. I think it's about the only form of real socialism that's happened since time began. There are other experiments, but I think they've collapsed. Yes.
All right. So how can we change the grassroots thinking? How can we gather together with one voice?
Well, you've got to get active in the political parties and demand and insist that politicians tell the truth. Now, I know that's like a politician's promise is going to be hard, but that's the only way. We've got to get them to tell the truth. A bit like going to your doctor. Yeah. You want to be told the truth. You don't want waffle. And so when we do that, that's the main thing.
All right. Now, but fear drives people away from that sometimes, doesn't it?
Yes. They don't want to be seen as a radical or a rocking the boat or nonconformists. So they buckle under and accept the cliches that politicians give out and don't question it. So, yeah, fear. And fear that if you go on strike, you won't be able to pay the mortgage and, yep.
Okay. All right. So if we work together, we talk to one another, we do our research, we come up with, there's something I hadn't realised before, and we just chat about it without that causing our friendship to break. Is there a view out in society that if you're different to me, it might end our friendship?
Of course. I've copped a lot of flack. I mean, if you're a Catholic or a Christian, you go to church on Sunday, you're regarded as an oddball. If you believe in a real socialism, not Stalinism, you're regarded as odd. If you believe in being a whistleblower, you're mad, you've got no career, you're stuffed. So they're big problems. But it's got to be done. Someone's got to tell the truth.
Yes. All right. Is it because good men and women keep silent under these kind of pressures? Are they real pressures? Because there must be enough good in society to move us out of that fear factor.
It's touch and go.
Okay.
Of course, there's a lot of good. But there's a lot of apathy. It's more not bad, but it's apathy.
Yes.
And it's the old saying, all that it takes for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. And that's where I think we're at the moment in Australia. Good people are not doing enough. Yeah, nowhere near enough.
Marcus, on that good point, we'll take note. You've been watching Support Life, and that's all for our program today. Join us again next week. Goodbye.